Alright guys, Newcastle have just beaten Southampton by 2 goals to 1 to secure their spot in the final of the League Cup. And yeah, this is massive for Newcastle. Obviously, they've gone so many years without a trophy. Obviously, at the top level, I think they've won the Championship once or twice since in the past 10 years or so. But it has certainly been far too long for a club of that size since they last won a trophy. And yeah, this game, Newcastle just got the job done early on, both goals coming from Sean Longstaff. And they were really good goals. The first one, it was a really nice flowing team move, going from left to right, involving Bruno Guimaraes, Joe Linton and Kieran Trippier before Trippier plays it into Longstaff, and good finish from Longstaff. And the second one was a bit more one touch, but still a fantastic goal. Joe Willock, Almiron, and then Longstaff again. And yeah, brilliant performance from Newcastle's attack in the first half of the game, 100%. The only downside was Southampton, even though it looked like they were dead and buried, they did pull one back through before half time from Che Adams. And it will annoy Eddie Howe a little bit, because it did come from a error from Newcastle in midfield. Joe Willock playing the ball behind Bruno Guimaraes landed at the feet of Che Adams, and it was a fantastic strike from Che Adams. In all fairness, I think Che Adams gets a lot of flack for being a player who can be very wasteful at times, not the best decision making in front of goal. But I still think he has his moments throughout the season. I certainly think he's good enough to be in, like, playing for Southampton. I mean, starting 11 might be a different question, but he's certainly an option for Southampton and does a job when he is on the pitch. And yeah, took that goal brilliantly well, and it did give Southampton a lifeline. They only needed 2 goals, and it got to the point where even with 10 minutes to go, that you still felt they had a chance, especially with the red card to Bruno Guimaraes. And yeah, I've got the transfer news up on here. Palace has signed Sambi Lokonga from Arsenal. Okay. Yeah, there'll be updates as I film this. But yeah, where was I? Bruno Guimaraes red card. It was 100% a red card for me. Similar to what Fabinho did over the weekend with that tackle on Evan Ferguson, and I think Fabinho should have been sent off. And I think he thought he was going to be sent off, and sort of, was apologising for it to the ref to try and get out of it. But yeah, it definitely was a red card. You can't put studs that high up on, or plant them that high up on a player. It's just far too dangerous, and that's what Bruno Guimaraes did. Fortunately, I don't think he's going to miss the final of the League Cup, because I mean, that would be a humongous miss for Newcastle. He is arguably their best player, I think. So important to the way they play, and I would say the best signing of the Newcastle takeover era so far. But I think it's just league games that he is going to miss. So, Chelsea have agreed a deal to sign Fernandes. Right, that's an improvement on what was being said earlier. But yeah, that would be a massive miss if he was to miss the final. But luckily for Newcastle, that isn't the rules. The rules are just domestic, so he will miss the next league matches, I think. And yeah, Southampton, they pushed towards the end. They made a lot of attacking changes, even changing the formation to a back four, bringing on Romeo Lavia, Sekou Mara. I think Mara came on. Joe Aribo, Romain Perraud. So many attacking changes, and the best chance of the game for Southampton came to the former Geordie, Adam Ant. Well, he's still a Geordie because he was born in Newcastle, but as in former Geordie, and he used to play for Newcastle. And it was a brilliant pass threaded through to him by Romeo Lavia, who I think is a fantastic midfielder for how old he is. I think he's still only 18 or 19, Romeo Lavia. And yeah, given how good he is at that age, he could certainly be a very good player in a few years' time. Um, Certainly, I think the fact that he has been injured for the majority of this season so far, I think that is a big factor in why Southampton are struggling as much as they are right now. As well as other players being injured too. Kyle Walker-Peters, who unfortunately got injured again tonight. Armel Bella-Kotchap picking up an injury earlier on in the season, as well as Tino Livramento being out as well for pretty much, I think, the entire season so far. So they've been dealt a bad hand with injuries, Southampton. But yeah, it was a brilliant ball through from Lavia and a really good run from Armstrong as well. But I think you have to credit Nick Pope with the goalkeeping, because that was the only point in the game where I thought Newcastle's backline looked a little bit out of shape. Newcastle are so well organised, and there was absolutely nothing they could really do about the Che Adams goal. Once Che Adams had the ball, obviously they could have kept the ball in midfield, but nothing the defenders could do anyway about it. It was just a fantastic strike. But yeah, they pushed Southampton. They got a couple of free kicks towards the end, and you always felt going into them right. James Ward-Prowse has got a chance here. But then again, Newcastle have some very tall players to put in the wall. Players like Alexander Isak, who felt the force of one of Ward-Prowse's free kicks. Sven Botman, Dan Burn, Joe Linton. You know, the list is endless of like the height in Newcastle's team. And yeah, they couldn't find one goal in the second half, never mind two. So, you know, it was never really going to happen, was it? But yeah, they gave it a good go. And yeah, there are a couple of players to talk about in this Southampton team, mainly Alcaraz and Bree at right back. Bree was making his debut. Alcaraz, I think, maybe his second or third appearance. And yeah, Alcaraz, he didn't have the greatest game in the first half, and nor did Bree at right back, I'll be honest. Obviously, one of Nathan Jones' first signings, well, his first signing from his former club, Luton. I don't know if he will bring any more along with him to Southampton. But yeah, it wasn't the most spectacular debut ever from James Bree at right back. I'm just seeing on Sky Sports now breaking news, so I'm just going to find something to talk about here and keep an eye on that for a second. But yeah, Newcastle obviously through to the final. The likelihood is they'll play Manchester United, given they're 3-0 up. And yeah, I to be honest, I'm going to back Newcastle for it. I just think the with the injury issue that United have gone through with Christian Eriksen today. Obviously, right now they're trying to sign Sabitzer, but with the problems that United are facing with injuries, I just think Newcastle probably have the edge, and there is this desperation with Newcastle to end like the barren spell of lack of silverware. Whereas, I mean, United haven't won anything recently, since Mourinho went, and even then it was Mourinho's first season that they won the 3 trophies. So it is, it will be 6 years this year since they won a trophy, but that's nothing on what Newcastle, what is it? It's something like 50, or might even be something like 60 years since Newcastle won a trophy. I'm not 100% sure, but so long since they won I forgot what they call it now, like a sort of like official trophy, like that's at the top level. But yeah, I think Newcastle will win this competition. That is my prediction, providing that they can keep their players fit. Obviously, if like the likes of Nick Pope, Bruno Guimaraes, Joe Linton, Miguel Almiron, Kieran Trippier, Sven Botman, if any of them are out, obviously that's going to put them at a big disadvantage. And I think Newcastle this season have done quite well in terms of injuries. Obviously, with Alexander Isak, he's missed the majority of the season so far. That's not been great. But other than that, and a few Callum Wilson niggles, they've managed to do quite well in that regard. But yeah, it was. It's considering that this game was pretty much over after about 20-25 minutes after the second goal went in, or it felt that way anyway. Southampton did make a game of it, to be fair. Newcastle didn't really get forward much in the second half until they brought Sam Maximin on, who, you know what to expect from Sam Maximin, really. He's going to get forwards, try and run forward with it. That's his game. But other than that, they didn't really do a lot. Southampton didn't have to worry too much about defending. And yeah, the second half they could go for it. But I think they'll feel disappointed with the lack of chances that they actually were able to create in the second half of this game. If I'm picking a man of the match, I'll go with... I've decided to, put off the player ratings for a while because I just think it was a little bit tedious, to be honest. But man of the match for this game, I shall go Nick. I'm gonna have to go a Newcastle player. I'm thinking Nick Pope. Possibly Joe Willock had that mistake which cost him the goal. There's the problem there. I'll go with the obvious option, Sean Longstaff. He even in the second half, after he scored his 2 goals, he put up a good fight in midfield, and it was a big reason why Southampton weren't allowed much time on the ball. So yeah, I think Sean Longstaff's in man of the match today. It was a very good performance from him. But anyway, thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.